So, dear Gabor Andrassy, dear President, dear friend, dear friends of Magyar Paneuropa Union, dear Pan-European friends, you wanted a debate. You asked for a free discussion. Certainly, it was a big success. All my felicitation, my congratulations. Thank you, merci for that. Also, thank you, merci, dankeschön, for what you have done these 2 days, for our welcome, for the perfect organization. It was a very pleasant, good time here in Vats, and it will remain in our Pan-European memory, you can be sure. Once again, thank you. Not only now, as I told you yesterday, my personal contribution to the debate of today. Europe has to establish itself as a united, independent power. This is an urgent necessity, more urgent than ever. The pan-European vision of Richard Coudenhove-Kalergi, born in 1923, the pan-European vision, was implemented after the Second World War, during the Cold War, and continued since. The march towards the united Europe seemed irresistible as it became the most significant peaceful revolution of all history. It was indeed a challenge to bring together states and peoples who had opposed for centuries so much and so hard into one collective project. For most of the objectives pursued, it was a success. And with rare exceptions, most European countries have joined the EU, or wish to join, until the 23 June 2016, when the British people decided by referendum to leave. But facing competition with established and emerging powers, the consequences of banking, financial, economic and social crises that succeeded in fierce global competition have fueled more strident criticism by the Europeans themselves. Criticisms against a union which revealed itself unable of defending its interests and asserts its power. Moreover, the European institutions, especially the Commission, were criticized for overlooking, or even worse, ignoring the realities of Europe. Set in a bureaucratic system, in a contested democratic legitimacy, the Commission nourished among Europeans more by clumsiness and incompetence than deliberately the feeling that it underestimated the persistence of their national sentiment. Subject to the growing influence of purely financial interests and Anglo-Saxon rules of a doctrinal liberalism and the dogma of free and undistorted competition, the supranational Europe called Brussels is now called into question, including its founding objectives. Challenged in its operation and its decisions, the European Union remains inoperative in its external policy and also in its non-existent policy on defense and security, leaving the initiative, responsibility, and the main border of these fields to the USA through the structure of NATO. Weakness as a source of progress, as well as in its intention to unite nations and peoples, the desire for Europe has gradually lost its savor to the point where none more countries might withdraw following the vote of the British in favor of Brexit, depriving themselves of the common work so long and so hard achieved. Weakness and challenges of the European Union have proved through consecutive events of external and internal origin. The countries south from the Mediterranean Sea, from west to east, from Europe, are impacted directly by the repercussion of Europe's intervention, and those executed together with the USA, as well as the rise of a radical Islamism which Europe has been unable to mitigate or even to hold back. The proliferation of terrorist attacks which have arose more compassion among Europeans than solidarity in combat them. Had Europeans been expecting with the disappearance of the Soviet Union that a trusting and constructive cooperation could be forged with Russia, they must be not only disappointed, but even worse, they must feel suspicious and worried again. The autocratic and vindictive regime settled in Moscow has already demonstrated the danger it posed to the peace of Europe by the combative militarist behavior. And it is important not to delude ourselves about the real intention of the Russian regime in the Middle East. Russian military interventions are intended only to assert its power and influence. However, Russia did not manage to take advantage of market economy to adopt a modern economy at the height of its natural resource. For the USA, Americans, after the height of their power in the last decades of the 20th century, are now seized by doubt and desire, as you can see in the period of election. Bound by many ties to Europe and to the Middle East, the US behaves as a helpless Gulliver. But it already knows, and we should not ignore this, that its active interest has already turned to the shores of the Pacific and to the China Sea. This means that Europe has a duty to protect itself under the threat of renewed Russian expansionism and devastating terrorism of radical Islamism. In addition to seize the new geopolitics of Europe is influenced by the inevitable phenomenon of its population decline, twinned with the demographic explosion of an early Africa which is unable to control. The euro has not become the single currency across all the EU, and among those states they have adopted it, economic, financial, budgetary, fiscal and social disparities have led to rivalries and frustration. The non-accession to Schengen by some European countries, such as the lack of strict enforcement, rendered the principle of free movement within the Union questionable. The unanticipated influx of political and economic refugees from the Near and Middle East, North Africa and the Sub-Saharan Africa resulted in chain reaction of mistrust and blocking of frontiers by countries along the main transit routes. and the unilateral decision taken by Germany in the beginning, the welcome refugees generously, was loudly contested by some of its European partners. These accumulated failures, along with the lack of recognized authority of European institutions, have promoted in all countries to varying degrees the return to the increasing of affirmation of national characteristics to the detriment of the objective of European solidarity. While the rebirth of the need for national sentiment, it is understandable that those states suffering the domination of another in the recent past, this is not the case for Western countries, Western Europe. Yet it is in the entire European Union that national sentiment is evolving towards the return to nationalism, and that might result in consequences of conflict. We have learned from history that peace is fragile and that civilizations are vulnerable. We have chosen Europe for safeguarding peace between us Europeans and face the world, beginning with our closest neighbors. We have chosen Europe to preserve our fundamental values stemming from the Greco-Roman culture, Christian hope, and humanism of the Enlightenment. We know that together we can contribute as global leaders to teach to technological revolution underway without stay as we are now dependent on innovation and production from outside of Europe. We must continue to lead the way towards a world where the climate will be preserved from the pollution we create. Therefore, we must set some priority goals within NATO or by its side, set up an operational capacity relying on our national resources and increasing our budget accordingly. Strengthen our borders with permanent surveillance and with human and material resources. Organize our collective security through closer cooperation between our justice and police system, pulling our universities to promote research and innovation, use all financial resources available to invest in the revival of the European economy in line with technological developments, amend the European institutions with the aim to better separate national competence and those falling under European sovereignty, establishing at the top of the Union an executive council from the governments of member states under the dual control of European and national parliament, associate accession, candidate countries which have not yet met the condition of membership with the governance of the Union. Finally, we, the Pan-Europeans, know that based on the lesson of the Gospel and the best and worst lights of our history, we are able to achieve this peaceful revolution and give an example to humanity. Yes, if we want, if we will, the Europe where we dream in the past, we still dream, is possible. Show to the British voters that the European is the solution. Show to the world that European exists and has to be respected. Show the world that European is a future, has a future. Show the world that far as in the past, we can give to the civilization its progress, because For us, European, we have no other solution other European unified. And if we don't forget that Pan-European shows the way, we have to follow that way forever. Thank you.